Let's wait for a few people to pop on before we start talking about why you are unable to sleep. Even though you are absolutely exhausted, when your head hits the pillow, your brain just will not. It just will not allow you to shut down. It won't allow you to sleep. So we have some people hopping on now. I'm just going to wait for a few more to hop on, and then we are going to get started. So if you, those of you that are hopped on here, if you can type in the comments with how long you have been struggling with sleep, how long have you had that tired and wired feeling, or do you wake mid-sleep? Or you could be in the third category, which is where you sleep, no problem. Your head hits the pillow, you fall asleep, you could sleep 10, 12 hours, but when you wake up, you are feeling almost hungover. So let me know in the comments which of those three you stand so that I know that I make sure that I cover that today, and how long it has been happening. All right, so let's get started. So being tired and wired, there's different things that are happening in your body. With it, it's all based on, it mainly comes from your stress management system. So your stress system is your brain, it's your adrenals, which they sit on top of your kidneys. They're the size of a grape, the shape of a walnut. And that's your adrenals. And then you also have a pineal gland, a gland that's in your brain as well. This gland, as well as the adrenals, they are in charge of 50 different hormone responses. So sleeping, waking, your moods, cognitive thinking, energy, all of your organs. So if you have blood pressure issues, you have blood sugar issues, you have digestive issues, gallbladders, there's a lot of nurses I know have a lot of gallbladder issues. There's a lot of different, any of your organs, kidneys, all of these things. Everything is managed by these 50 different hormones that your stress system is in charge of. Now, the thing with sleep is, first off to know, is that when you are supposed to be falling asleep, what happens is your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, but it is also your awakening energy hormone. When that is firing, it goes all through your body. So when you have had long-term stress in your career, when you're, every single stress that you go to, you could go to a call that is cleared by the time that you get there. You could spill your coffee, you're getting an email, it could be something at home, financial stress. All of these stresses, our bodies have never, ever adapted over time. And so what happens with that is every single time that we have a stress, our body can't tell the difference between a crisis and when it really needs this cortisol, this stress hormone to be pumping through, and when it is just reading an email and we really don't need all of these physical things to be changing in our body to get through the stress of whatever is in the email. So we have a lot of this cortisol, and being a first responder, you have stress of being awake at night, long shifts, overtime, not being able to eat. All of these stresses, they accumulate over your career. And so over time of sleeping at different times, waking at different times, having this cortisol pumping out, that cortisol waking hormone has no idea when to turn off and when to turn on. It's absolutely confused. And it likes to sit in the frontal lobe of your brain. It is all over your body as well, but it really does sit in that frontal lobe of your brain. And when that is happening, you get all these thoughts. It's when you're trying to lay in the pillow, thoroughly exhausted, but you can't shut off your brain. It could be random thoughts that you're thinking about. It could be things that are happening at work, all of this. It could be the same thing every single night. If it is a traumatic event, then that, if it's only happening when you're falling asleep, it could be a cortisol issue, but you may want to also check into some things to do with PTSD, which is different. But if these thoughts are always happening, your head is lying on the pillow and you just can't turn it off, the odds are you have extra cortisol, extra energy hormone floating around. And when you have that energy, that stress hormone floating around, your sleep hormone, the melatonin, it doesn't know that it's time to kick in. So you have the hormone for sleep not kicking in and the other one overfiring, and you're laying there and you have no friggin' clue what to do. So then we have that. So that explains the tired and wired. Okay. Now, the other thing is if that melatonin is not kicking in, it doesn't know when it's supposed to be happening. After the melatonin kicks in, there's a whole cascade of all of these other hormones healing while you sleep. Your short-term memory starts remembering and processing things. So you may find that when you're not getting this sleep, when you're tired and wired for a long period of time, your brain gets fuzzy, your reports get harder, you get more brain fog, you don't remember things. You may find as well your moods are part of that. So your moods start to get frazzled, you get easier frustrated. Things that never used to bother you start bothering you. You go from 0 to 100. Your body is not able to manage all these hormones. We get a lot of internal things. We get a lot of those issues with your heart and your blood pressure, your blood sugars, your digestion, your kidney, your liver. All of your organs are all a part of that. So if your melatonin's not kicking in the way it's supposed to, then this cascade that sets off all of these other hormones to do their thing, the inflammation, boosting your immune system, allergies, like healing injuries, all of these things start to become affected. And then we get into this second problem where when you do finally fall asleep, that you start waking mid-sleep. The odds are that mostly in your career, it was where maybe it was 8 hours you could get, then 7, then 6 and 5, and it just kept getting smaller as your career has gone on, where it starts waking you up. I know some of you that I speak to, it's 2 hours into your sleep. You cannot get more than 2 hours. And that is another hormone. That is your glucose hormone. And what it is doing is normally every time that you have a stress, like I was talking about earlier, whenever the stress, it doesn't matter if it's that email, if it's rushing to a call, the call is cleared, if it's putting on your uniform and prepping for your day, if it's your 2-year-old having a tantrum beside you, your body does not know the difference between all of these stresses. So as it's throwing that cortisol, that stress hormone through your body, it's also throwing glucose, because you need energy to fight the fight. And then you need that strength, that oomph to be able to get in that hypervigilant state in order to be able to deal with the crisis at hand. All the blood is pumped away from your organs and the blood is pumped into your arms, all of these things, and that glucose. So the glucose is that energy. But when it's been going through tons and tons through the years of your career, that glucose, it's supposed to last you 8 hours of sleep. Your glucose levels are supposed to last you about 4 hours during the day between eating to fuel them. And it's supposed to store enough energy for 8 hours of sleep. But it gets completely out of whack because it's being sent and cleaned up and sent and cleaned up. So over time, your brain does a few things. Your brain sits there and says, hey, we've been sending out so much of this glucose. Let's do a few things. One is, let's store all of this glucose around your middle. And that's where you may find that no matter how good your nutrition is, how much you're exercising, how great of a lifestyle is, you cannot lose that weight around your middle. So that is the one thing it does. The other thing that it does is that 8 hours of sleep that it is supposed to stay, it loses its power. It loses its ability. So it starts running out. It's all confused. So it starts at 7 hours, then 6, then 5. And then what's happening is your brain is like, oh, we're having this blood sugar low. And it wakes you up. And it will not let you go to sleep until you have got your blood sugar stabilized again. And so that's why you're tossing and turning and just can't get to sleep. Sometimes eventually your body just gets so exhausted, it'll let you sleep, but you're not getting into a good restorative sleep where the melatonin is kicking in and starting that whole cascade of everything happening, so that when you wake up, you have energy and you're happy and you're able to be alert, your brain is clear. That is when your cortisol is supposed to be at its highest, but everything is out of whack. And that is where your sleep starts to really get messed up. So I hope that explains it to you. I see somebody, some of you have replied here. So it's like your brain's on a TV. Yeah, and someone has the remote and they just keep changing the channels. Exactly. And that is the cortisol. It's fighting, it's firing in your brain. And So you're waking up every 20 to 30 minutes. So that's most likely a mix of the cortisol and the glucose hormones being completely out of whack with those. So I'm going to ask Kenneth as well, if you're still listening to this, do you find during the day, do you get hangry? Do you also have weight around your middle? Do you find that, sorry, I'm just trying to read your email at the same time. Most of them are, yeah, your thoughts are just crazy coming out of nowhere. And that's the thing. So there is a big difference between PTSD and reoccurring traumatic thoughts, or just not being able to shut your mind off in the middle of the day. It might be the stupidest things. You might be thinking about things at work, but there is a big difference between where they are at, and the one is quite often in your brain. So any of you that are listening, do you guys have that diabetes? Chris? Yeah. Diabetes is huge. It's a big thing, and that is a lot of the blood sugars that are affected. So if you came to me, if you were a cop and you came to me with diabetes, I would start asking you some other questions as well. I would ask you about the weight around the middle. I'd ask you about your sleep. I'd ask about how hypervigilance is. I would be asking about your ability to do your reports. Has that changed throughout your career as well? If so, that would tell me that the diabetes maybe, I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose this, but all the signs are very linked, that I would question if any of that is a combination of your stress system just being so taxed. And we all get these symptoms differently. That's why some do get diabetes, some get the heart issues, some get gut issues, and they're all different, and it's hard to relate them, but it's because of different things. First off, how stressed your body is. Second off, what condition were these organs and was your body in to start with? Your genetic makeup, your DNA attribute to that. So you may have a family history with some of these things, but it's hit you quicker. Or it may be, if we look at it as well, which I've done this with some people, where we look at it and we talk about what their family member who has that issue, we look at their other symptoms too, what their life was like, what their stress system was like, how they manage stress with their anxiety, depression, all of these things that are linked to the symptoms. And then it's possible to say that maybe DNA wise, genetically, you guys had some sort of a predisposition to diabetes, or some sort of a predisposition to heart issues or digestive issues. And that is where your body hit first when your stress system got weakened. So I hope that that answers that question for you, Chris. Sleep down, hypervigilance way up. Yeah. So Chris, you're showing other signs other than just diabetes of stress. So what came first? I mean, you can tell me that, really what came fast, the hypervigilance. I talked about hypervigilance last week, although Facebook is being bombarded with everybody being on here to be doing different things because of COVID. Everybody's had to go video. So there was a lot of tech glitches in it. So the quick and dirty as well with hypervigilance, one is the hormones that I explained at night. You have the moods and that you're not able, but there's also a second component to that, is that we have two different nervous systems. And the nervous system, two branches of our nervous system that manages our stress response. And one of them does stress and one of them does rest and relaxation, and they are the same as a muscle. So if you're working one of them and you're hitting it hard, just like you would in the gym, it gets stronger, it gets quicker to react. Whereas if you're not working the other one, the resting one, it becomes weaker and slower to react. So a really easy way to find out if your resting nervous system is slower, turned off, which the odds are it is think about your sleep. When you're sleeping, do you snore? Do you have sleep apnea? Are you breathing through your mouth and getting that dry feeling? Are you sometimes waking up because your mouth is so dry? Do you feel like your mouth tastes horrible at the end of your sleep or while you're sleeping, because those are signs that you're mouth breathing. And when you're mouth breathing, you're using your stress nervous system. When you are resting breathing, you're breathing through your nose. So there are different things too. So that is separate. We kind of go through 3 phases in my program. And the first one is making sure that the hormones are working the way they're supposed to. So we get those aligned first. And that allows that cortisol to start slowing down at night. It allows the melatonin to start kicking in a little, and it allows that cascade of hormones to start working while you are sleeping, so that your body can start repairing and doing what it needs to do. And then we start training that nervous system. So that's the second step, which we call the stress rest balance, where we teach you how to start giving your body cues when you're sleeping so that you are switching into your resting nervous system instead of being in that other system, so that when you're going to calls, when you're reading an email, you can instantly switch off that system. So we start teaching you how to do it. But the first thing before we would do that is definitely get these hormones in check so that we can get everything on track. Because as with many of you, I'm sure you have found that when you are, when you're eating as healthy as you can, when you're working out, and all of that stuff, and you get to this point where you're so exhausted, where the motivation goes, or you get nagging injuries, or you just have no motivation and drive left anymore. And that is a huge sign that your stress system is taxed to a point where your hormones are off, where your nervous system is firing wrong, and all of these things. And so we need to take an approach to be able to support it as much first, to give you back that motivation and drive, to get those hormones working, so that these lifestyle changes that you're doing, which eating and nutrition, I actually don't do for almost 3 to 4 months in my program. There are so many things that we need to do first, because you are first responders, to teach you how to get your system out of that stress state, teach you how to sleep first, before your body is even ready, or before the nutrition and the working out or anything will even take hold. So it's really important to go that route. So I'm just going to see. So Jasper, yeah, gained 30 pounds over the last 5 years. And Jasper, what have you tried to do with that weight gain? Like, what have you tried? Have you tried working out? Have you tried adjusting your nutrition? Have you tried any of those things? Because the one thing with weight gain as well is same thing. When your hormones are off, it throws your metabolism. One of those hormones is what adjusts your metabolism. So how your body burns through food and all of these things totally gets thrown off. And so even when you're adjusting your nutrition as well, if your metabolism, if that hormone is completely off as well, then what you're eating doesn't even do what it's supposed to be doing in your body. So there's really some base things that we need to do first, taking into account definitely what your job entails. So I hope that this has been very helpful for you guys. If you have any other questions, I actually don't have, next week we have Alyssa, who is a gut expert on digestion. So any of you that are struggling with digestive issues, she's amazing at taking people who can't even leave their house, who can't even, they're really ruled by the toilet. And there are some of you that I have spoke to who have to keep booking off because you can't leave your bathroom. So she helps those people to be able to get them back having a normal life and working again. She works with major diarrhea and constipation, gas that can clear a room, all of these things. So she is what we are doing next week, but the week after, I don't have a topic yet. So if any of you, you're welcome, Chris. If any of you have any questions, or have a topic that you want me to be covering and talk about, let me know and I can cover that one in 2 weeks. All right. Sean, sleep apnea, snore at night, military police, yeah, 16 hours a day. Your mind never shuts off. and you're active and trying to eat healthy the best you can. Yeah. And the thing is, Sean, is that I would actually, first thing is I would ask is, how is your motivation and drive? Like your mind, I'm going to assume most of you are of a personality where you've always been active. You've always, taken care of yourself. You know how important it is in the job. But there's a difference between the ability to put those steps in place because and what your mind wants you to do. That motivation and drive starts to go as well when the sleep goes, when the hormones get off. The more exhausted, the more taxed your system goes, the more all of these things get thrown off. So Sean, there are some really cool things that we can be doing to get the sleep, apnea, and snoring going. But as I said with the other things as well, we need to first get your stress system calm down again. So I relate that to a car battery. Your battery may not have enough power in it to start the car. So you need to boost it first before you can even find out if it's the alternator or the spark plugs or what it is that's causing the problem to be draining the battery. Okay, so quite often too, we start checking the alternator by working out. We start checking the spark plugs by fixing our nutrition, but the battery is just so low that we're never really going to be we're not fixing that problem first. And that's where we need to hit first before we can even getting into the skills for getting the nervous system to be doing what it needs in sleep for your sleep apnea and your snoring. All right. So any other questions, type them in the comments and I will answer them for you guys. And that's it. So I am around, always ask questions. I'm definitely here to help. Okay, take care. Have a good day.